Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited. I have my new friend Kevin Patrick with me. Kevin, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about you, and then we're going to get into some really fun things.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. A few things about me. Born and raised in Philadelphia, moved to Florida at 30, met my wife, have two kids. First 20 years of my career was on the operations and finance side of either manufacturing or distribution firms. And in 2014, I made the pivot to the what I like to refer it to as the dark side of the table, right? It's the ERP consulting world. Um, so yeah, so I did that for a while. And then I was promoted into so before I went to become a consultant, right? I was the COO and CFO of a very large skincare brand. Um, and then I went from where I was to a frontline consultant, right? Like it's a complete career change out of the blue. My wife was 6 months pregnant. We were like, what is going on? But it was honestly the best move I've ever made. So fast forward a couple years and over 100 implementations in, um, I started, you know, ERP implementations get a bad rap, right? They really do. Um, I look, some of it's justified, but in my experience, um, it's it's how do I say this politically correct? It's
You don't
not
have
the
to be correct.
technology. The technology works, right? You
Yeah.
have to get it's all about adoption and having the people buy in. And when I say the people, I mean the people who use the system day in and day out, not director level and up type people. Um, because they're just getting their reports and then making decisions and kicking out the marching orders. Um, so over the past year to two, right, I went kind of from technology first, people second approach when it comes to everything when it comes to business, and then I had to I had a life event, let's just say a life-changing event that kind of changed my perspective on things and made me realize that, these programs are failing because by the number is somewhere between 70 and 80%, depending on which poll you're looking at. So three out of four people in your workforce are not working all day, right? In your company. And when you start to understand those numbers, they are huge. Then it gets into the hundreds of thousands of dollars of waste really quickly. It depending on the size of the company, right? The
Yeah.
bigger the company, the worse it is. It scales into the millions, or it's crazy. Um, so that is who I am. I am I'm an EOS integrator. I'm a certified dream manager. I'm a founder of my own company that serves multiple purposes. And I also work for somebody full time, right? So like my business is like, it's a side hustle. Like, I work for somebody else, and I'm the director of consulting for a company called AIM Solutions. So yeah, and then off time, uh, what do I do? Do I rest? No, I head coach a middle school football team. I've been a head football coach for the last 7 or 8 years. Um, so that's me.
I love it. Now, there's a lot to unpack in there. And off before we started, we were talking about the accidental rift between integrator and visionary in the EOS world. And again, nobody intended it. But I think I've met a fair number of chief operating officers who want to blame the visionary founder. And I'll be blunt, we can cause chaos. That's kind of our thing, but without that chaos, there is no business. So I'm fascinated by the interplay between integrator and visionary, because if you had Roy and Walt, I always say that if Walt was left to his own devices at Disney, he'd just be some crazy guy drawing cartoons. But if Roy was left to his devices, he'd have a very well organized stock room. Everything would be alphabetized and sorted. But together they built an empire. And I love the magic of a visionary who finds their integrator.
Yeah. So you want me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Is
So
that
let's
you want to
talk
hear
to
my
that.
take on that?
Yeah, I want to hear your take, because honestly, it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges, but we need both if we want to have a fruit salad, right?
I take a different view than I think what you're talking about. Um, the visionaries are usually the founders of the company, right? It's their cash.
Yeah.
So you or I first have to understand and acknowledge that, right? Um, this person built whatever it is we're talking about, whatever business they built, whether it's 1 million, 5 million, 100 million, 2 billion, like doesn't matter. Um, it, they're the ones that did it. So, is there help along the way? Yeah, sure. But, you have to have, you can't take a job because of the money, right? Like there has to be an integration between the integrator and the visionary, and there has to be almost, I would say, full level of trust that you're there to support each other, right?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I have told visionaries in the past that um great idea, but if we do that, this, that, and this is going to slip. So
Yeah.
which one do you want to do? Right? Like, if like, my job is to make him aware of, if we're inserting something else is going to suffer
Yeah.
unless we throw resources at it, like, bring in people. So you have to, as an integrator, you first have to have a backbone. You have to be willing to speak openly and honestly with the visionary. Um, and I mean, I would honestly say, if there's a lot of integrators out there pointing the finger at the visionaries, they should probably look for a new line of work. Because you know it ain't gonna last long if
Yeah.
that's the way you're approaching it, right?
Well,
It's
full disclosure, the people I know, they're an in-house COO, and they've brought EOS in, and so
Mhm.
they've been given the role of integrator, and they haven't necessarily gone through all of the EOS training you've had. So they tend to, and by the way, I hear this a lot from CFOs too. They say that when I interview a CFO, they like to say that the visionary founders are like children asking for an extension on their allowance. It's like, but whose wallet does that come out of?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, exactly.
and for the record, I firmly believe one without the other, you're either going to have spinning in circles or you're going to go in a straight line and the line never gets anywhere. Put the two together and magic happens. So I think that's powerful. Let's shift gears to your life and your role as a certified dream manager. And really, truly, the reason I wanted you on the show is I read the email and I went, what is that? Tell me more. So, what is a dream manager? Please, Kevin.
Yeah. So it's so, so the Dream Manager is a book that was written by a gentleman named Matthew Kelly. And it was written, I don't know, like a while ago, like 25 years ago. And I might be off on that, but I think it was like the mid 90s. But I mean, it's a book that, it's an easy read and or listen on Audible. That's how I did it. On a plane flight from California back to Florida. I listened to it and I was just like, wow. So what it's about, what a dream manager does is their sole purpose in a company, right? And you can also do it with individuals, but if you're gonna do it like a fractional thing with the company, some companies hire full-time dream managers, right? Like that's when you have somebody who really cares about their people. Because what a dream manager does is it's they take people, we take people through a process that's a year long, right? So it addresses like 12 categories of life, right? It's like your physical health, your emotional health, your intellectual, spiritual, legacy character. There's 12 characters that you go through and it's very regimented. And what you're doing or why I'm doing, I'll speak for myself. I went and did it because I've noticed I've noticed what the numbers in the world tell you, but I watch it play out day in and day out, right? Like there's something like 75% of the workforce is disengaged for one reason or another, right? They could have a sick parent, sick kid, in middle of a divorce, substance abuse, whatever the problem is, when they're at work, they're not working. So it's what happens in my world specifically. The folks who do the work day in and day out, and it doesn't matter what the business is. It could be a warehouse, it could be sales, it could be professional services, it could be engineering, whatever. When the people that do the work don't have any input, right? Because they're the people that do the job day in and day out, and they know the little nuances that happen, whether it's with a customer or a shipper or, like they got the secret sauce out there. Like the people that do the work is where the money is made, right? I mean, outside of obviously sales making the sale, but so
well, I'll say, Kevin, that I believe the real money is in the referral, not the first sale. And so that ties to what you said.
Yeah, sure.
People doing the work are what earn the referral, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, sure. If you don't have happy customers, you're not doing anything. So why ERP gets a bad rap is usually what happens on the ones that I've seen that haven't gone well, that have had to come in on rescue missions, is the whole implementation is done in a boardroom, right? Like all of the discovery and process mapping and what we do here is done in a conference room with senior managers, directors, department heads, CFOs, CEO. Um, and God knows the last time, if ever, they were out there doing the job.
Yeah.
So I am, I'm, I have a reputation, I guess, of, not being afraid to just speak openly and honestly about it. So, I'll go through the pleasantries, but like once we start really digging in, like I will say, hey, before we get going any further, let's go and take a tour of, depending on what type of facility it is, but I'll stick with manufacturing.
Yeah.
Let's go take a tour on the floor. And I'd like to talk to, the operators or the floor lead in each department and see what their pain points are, because I'm hearing what your pain points are. Um, and there is a correlation there, but you know, you're putting in a system with the assumption of that's the problem, right? Like
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna make this big investment of either, depending on company size, a couple $100,000 to couple $1 million. That when you find out that the dream manager, when a company brings in a dream manager, the dream manager's job is, first of all, confidential, right? Anything that they tell us, we do not tell the company, right? I mean, it's a I don't want to say anonymous, because people know who's in the program,
Yeah.
but you're we're a trusted confidant. So anything that
Yeah.
is said in the room stays in the room. Um, and we what I have found, as every dream manager who really jumps in and digs in has found, is, and it plays right back to that 75% disengagement. People aren't happy at work.
Yeah.
They're just showing up. People have stopped dreaming in this world and stopped, and does it sound soft and corny? Sure, it does. But, people have stopped, reaching for the stars and going after what they really want. Um, I am fulfilling, on April 1st, my biggest bucket list item, right? Because if I'm not practicing the program that I'm teaching, then that's, we won't get into the word, but you're just
Hypocrite will be a good enough word.
yeah. So it's, but I'm going to Ireland, to bring my parents' ashes home. And it's going to Ireland on a vacation has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. Um, and me, my wife, and my two boys are going for 8 days. So, but basically, that was a big long answer to say we're here to help. If it's a corporate engagement, we're here to help employers with their, usually it's turnover, retention, absenteeism, quiet quitting type things, right? We're there to identify that and tell people like, hey, like you're allowed to dream here and we're going to have a conversation and we're going to come up with a plan to get you there. And your company is doing this for you. Like they're the ones I'm here because of them, right? And when people realize that the company actually does care, like, it's not just the motto that they say and it's at the, sales
It's on the
meeting.
wall at the head
When they,
office.
yeah, when they're not getting a 3.5 to 4% raise, when they get when they understand that the company is really doing this, things turn dramatically. I mean, we've seen numbers in, in Matthew Kelly's book, he speaks about a company they had 400% annual turnover, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
That's a company turning over its entire workforce 4 times a year. I don't know how you could run the business that way.
That's
Um,
exhausting.
yeah. So, right, when you look at the cost of the person leaving and all that tribal knowledge that they take out, and depending on industry, the rehire, and if you're using a headhunter, um, and the time to ramp them up, I mean, those numbers climb. If you're talking anywhere from a $5 million business up, you're getting into the tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of waste really quickly, just because people don't feel valued.
And I find it fascinating. You mentioned earlier you had your big life-changing event and you realized you had put software first, people second.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, I am more similar to you than you'll know, but I used to think it was we just need more software. And
Yeah.
then I realized it's the fleshwear that's kicking my butt every time. And like you, I've been in way too many boardrooms where the leadership is like, here's what we're going to do. And I was like, oh, Zeus, come down from the mountain and talk to the people. They do not want a lightning bolt up their backside.
Yeah, for sure.
So I
For
love it.
sure.
And I'm fascinated by this dream stuff because really, truly, what does it cost you really to invest in your people versus what are you going to get as a return on investment? Like, I don't want somebody showing up and just putting in the motion and going through their day. I want somebody who genuinely wants to be there.
Yeah, well, when you have a company that is serious about implementing it, and look, like let's clarify. We're not saying, hey, we're gonna buy you a house. Like,
Yeah,
no, that's not what the company's gonna do. But, you know, the company will do what it can to help, and not even the company, the dream manager specifically
yeah,
will do what we can to lay out a plan, right? Like some people don't know how to budget, right?
yeah,
Some people don't know where there's money going. Some people, like myself, they want to go on a dream trip. They
yeah,
don't know how much it costs. And it's like, okay, guys, we got to break it down, right?
yeah,
So if the trip is going to cost X, how much disposable income do you have every month that you can put away towards this trip? And if the answer is none, then you have to cut back on something. Like something
yeah,
has to give. So those conversations get very um personal and emotional, right? Like they're great. But but what comes out of the other end of that is when an employee realizes that a company cares and is investing in them, like truly, and investing on them as a whole person, not just investing in like their productivity, um, they they come to work as a completely different person, right? And put in um come into work with the ability and intention to do so much more. Um yeah. So who knew, right? Like who knew that people were
I, lo-
miserable because they weren't dreaming?
I love that, and there's so much I could unpack in that. And unfortunately, we only have so much time. But the reality is, if people have stopped dreaming, they stop caring. Like they literally have, they're just trying to survive till lunchtime. And I've seen many organizations where the leaders come in and go, "Come on, we got to pull together so I can get my $1 million bonus." And hey, why doesn't anybody care? It's like, because you didn't buy them lunch, even, but yeah, you got your
Yeah.
bonus. Good for you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, what does working with you as a certified dream, what does that look like? Is that part of a bigger operations move? Is it just we're trying to fix some grumbling? We've got bad employee surveys. What's the trigger moment where people go, damn, we need Kevin in here?
Well, the trigger moment is usually I mean, the biggest one that I can point to and hear of most is the disengagement problem. Like that's
Yeah.
by far the number one biggest problem, right? People, if people are, like I said, they're either leaving or they're very unproductive or they're completely checked out, right? It's so yeah, I mean that's usually the catalyst where they say, when and if it's a small business owner that I'm talking to, and um they they understand it, right? Because they've gone like, you know, they've fulfilled their dream of creating a business. But on the other end of that, right? Like you think you've always wanted to work on, have your own company so you weren't working for somebody else. But when you're working for yourself, when it's your dollars and cents, you're working harder than you ever would have worked for somebody else, right? So it's yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy that I and tie that into the EOS integration stuff, right? I mean, it's blaringly obvious or glaringly obvious to me when those types of things are going down. Um, but yeah, that's usually the catalyst is, you know, it it can show up in many ways, right? CSAT scores drop, NPS scores are terrible, employee surveys are coming in negative, right? Sales are dropping, which means customers aren't happy.
Yeah.
And right, like it takes courage, I think, a lot of courage and backbone for any leader to to commit to this program. Right.
Yeah.
And they can commit to it in many different ways, but the ones that see the biggest turnaround um are ones that they basically establish like a dream fund, right? And that gets dished out however it gets dished out, right? You kind of got to pick and choose and make sure everybody's getting a little piece, but there's a lot of ways around it. Like I said, the program is very structured. Typically meet with an individual once a month, right? Because there's 12 categories of life. So we meet once a month through the 12 months of the year. And I usually see a breakthrough by the end of the first session. When people come in, they're sitting like this, like, like all closed off and all that business. And then by the end, it's just pouring out of them. Because I mean, think about it, Jeff. Like, when is the last time anybody, let alone your boss or senior managers at a company, said, "Hey, what are you dreaming on for your life?"
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
It's
I
not a
don't hear it asked.
commonplace.
Yeah, it's not common. Right.
Sadly. I mean, literally, you're saying, I see you, I hear you, you're important. And sadly, I don't think many hear that.
Right.
Now, you and I are probably going to have another conversation just about the process, but where can people go to connect with you, learn more about what you do, and find out what working with Kevin looks like?
Yep. So their first and easiest way is I have my own podcast called The Dream Dividend, where I speak through all of these things and talk about real life examples and what happens. And, you know, um, I tend to get pretty vulnerable in some of these episodes just from my standpoint as well. So that's number one. Um, there's a website, thedreamdividend.com. The company over it is a company, it's Trinity One Consulting. So you could go there. The Dream Manager is all over both sites, right? It's because they both sites serve different purposes. Um, but you know, as you mentioned, I was originally, as a up and coming executive business person, I was originally systems first, people second.
Yeah.
And over the past year to two, I switched to people first, systems second. And now I'm like, we need we need very much like with the integrator and the visionary, we need to be able to deploy both simultaneously, especially with the invention of AI, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not using AI as a buzzword. I'm using it as, I mean, it is an unbelievable tool that can cut, that can cut down on silly, repetitive tasks that businesses do that make them so inefficient that when you put a process in place and that's running in the background, that person is then freed up to add value elsewhere. Like,
Yeah.
right, like they can be servicing a customer, or I mean, whatever the business needs.
Yeah.
People, yeah, I'll stop there with it. But
You and I can have a whole episode on how people augmented with AI become superhuman. That's one of my favorite conversations.
Yeah.
But I want to respect your time, and I want to say thank you for hanging out with me. I love learning new things, and now that I know that there's certifications in dream management, I love that. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So that's a good point. If anything, if you, Jeff, want to be a certified dream manager, or anybody wants to, um, you go to it's facilitated by Floyd Consulting. They're based out of South Florida. Floyd Consulting is Matthew Kelly's company. Floyd was Matthew's father before he passed away. So just go to floydconsulting.com, put in the question, just fill out the little questionnaire thing, and they will get right back to you and have an open dialogue on it. But I appreciate you having me on the show to spread the word, because in the end, right? So one of the 12 categories is legacy. Like, what is your legacy? What do you want to be known for, right? Um and obviously I want to be known of being a good son, brother, husband, father, but really the legacy that I want to leave is I helped make the world a better place, right? I mean, and that that's I'll just leave it there.
That, my friend, is almost unanimous across my guests. So we're going to have more conversations on this, and I really want to thank you, Kevin.
All right, Jeff, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.